So an interesting lineup here with Sylvain Barrier, the former European Superstock 600 champion, Jeremy Guanoni. Guanoni of Frenchman, of course, ahead of Lorenzo Baroni and Eddie Lamara on the front row of the grid. The second row of the grid headed by the Australian former Superbike champion in Australia, Petruccini Kawasaki's Brian Starring, ahead of Markus Reiterberger and his BMW. And then an impressive qualification for the virtual birthday boy, turned 24 last weekend from Perth in Scotland, Kev Coghlan, riding for DMC Racing on the Ducati 1199 Panigale, moving from the Appleyard Macadam 600 in Supersport at Knock Hill last weekend here to the amazing facility at Motorland Aragon 7 days later. That's quite an impressive change. Kev Coghlan then qualifying in 7th place ahead of the race winner back at Monza, Lorenzo Savadori, on another Panigale. So we've got 3 Panigales on the front 2 rows of the grid, and one of them being ridden by Kev Coghlan. So interesting lineup here for this absolutely magnificent 3.321 mile circuit. And you will, of course, get an alarming number of completely unknown faces popping up in front of your camera. They are members of staff and team bosses of the Superstock Championship boys. I'm just wondering if I just spotted a very bright red helmet there, and I just wondered if that was anything to do with Prota, because Fat Freddy Prota used to wear
Fat Freddy Prota. You can't say that.
No, he was a sturdy chap.
You realise, of course, you're talking about one bloke that nobody's ever heard of, having a son that equally nobody's ever heard of. A man who used to qualify sort of somewhere 3/4 of the way back, and then his son's following in the family tradition.
That's very true. But Fred Prota scored enough points to finish. Talking about Panigales, there's a man at the helm, Ernesto Marinelli, who was had Carlos Checa trying out a Panigale last week around Misano, and has been very much involved in the development, in fact, of all the 916, the 998, the 999, the 1198, all the Ducati's succeeding generations. Marinelli's been involved in the development of.
Just to finish the Protat thing off, right? Just so we can put this one to bed. He was the man who you nearly lapped just about every weekend in World Superbike.
That's right.
Back about sort of 12 or 13 years.
He was, but in 1998 he scored enough points.
Not to get lapped.
He scored points at Albacete in Spain. He scored points in South Africa at Kyalami. Enough points to finish level with Sean Emmett in the championship.
I'm been a bit cruel to him, but yeah, he wasn't never going to set the world on fire.
No, he was a sturdy, steady lad. Now we're ready to go then with Superstock 1000cc here with a man. Oh, and we've got a problem straight away for number 93, Matthew Luciana, on the team Aspi Kawasaki.
It doesn't even look like he's going to start from pit lane. That's a terminal, whatever's happened there.
And look how different the weather is today. The track temperature's plummeted by nearly 20 degrees. The sun is intermittently behind clouds. The 1000 Superstockers are going to be the first guys to get a taste of this. And once that Brian Starring got a great start from the second row of the grid. The Australian coming round the outside into turn 1, and I think he might have clipped his way through to second place.
He has.
So Brian Starring get a brilliant start. That's what we wanted to see. 12 laps to go here around this beautiful Motorland Aragon, where we can expect about 15 spectators, because of course the European Championship features, Football Championship features Spain this
tonight.
Yep. Sylvain Barrier, of course, still suffering a little with a shoulder dislocation that he suffered
from
at
Monza. Yeah, he's actually won since, but apparently he couldn't move at all in the weeks following Misano. It's been really bad for him.
Well, and in fact, it's his teammate Baroni who's burst through from the second row of the grid. I beg your pardon, from third place on the grid. Baroni leads it from Starring. Savadori down in 6th place. Kev Coghlan in 8th place, having come from 7th on the grid. And these must be beautiful motorcycles to enjoy in this wide open space round here, where you can really wind them up over the blind brow, then dropping into turn 12, the 60-mile-an-hour left-hander, then keeping on downhill through turn 13, next down to turn 14. Superb, all this downhill, and in fact you carry on as you drop through this this 90-degree left-hander. This takes you onto the enormous 1.8-kilometre back straight. This is where they've got the wind behind them. So what becomes difficult, James, is judging that. Oh, look at this. Starring getting straight out of the slipstream. He's got the wind behind him. The strong breeze today is behind him, and Brian Starring looks like he's got the lead. Can he stop it? Whoa!
Yeah.
It's Baroni who's struggling a little bit with the weaving BMW, but they're safely through the bottom gear hairpin. And then now they're going uphill, surging uphill, straight back, wind in their faces this time as they hit the start and finish straight. And Brian Starring leads the way for Petticini Kawasaki.
Yeah, I can't believe how quick that Kawasaki was. The accepted quickest bike, most powerful bike out there in this stock 1000 class is generally accepted to be the BMW S1000 double. The man in second, Baroni, and his teammate Barry in third. They're on BMWs. The Kawasaki's are quick, but you wouldn't have just thought that Starring could have overhauled Baroni down the back straight there.
Brian Starring, well, perhaps Brian Starring likes this place. He got one of his best results here with an 8th place last year. So Starring leading the way and just beginning to open up a gap at the front.
Yeah, Brian Starring raced in Britain just once or twice, didn't he? Got brought in as a bit of a replacement rider mid-season, yeah, but didn't do that much before he flitted off to Super Stock 1000 in European Championship, this class.
And the team have struggled a little bit with, you know, he wasn't particularly happy last year, seems a bit more relaxed into it this year, really enjoys his life in Europe. He and his lady, they live up in near Lake Como, do a lot of cycling.
And typical Oz, you know, yeah, typical kind of wandering Oz, just kind of happy wherever they plonked, really. Well, they are, aren't they? Yeah. They travel really well.
And there's the second Kawasaki amongst the front runners there, Jeremy Guanoni, sorry. Is he beginning to get a handle on the thousands at last? He was the European Superstock 600 champion 2 years ago, and he's really pressing the gold bet BMWs now.
Yeah, and he's another one that quite likes it here. He's had reasonable results in a really rubbish season last year here.
So he is now just clinging on to the back of Sylvain
He's
Barrier.
doing more than that. Pops out the slipstream as he got it on the brakes.
Oh! No, he hasn't. No. And he's taken them, and he's sent
and I tell
Barrier.
you what, you could see that coming, Jack. He got committed up the inside. You could see it rippling over the bumps, and I tell you what, Barrier is not going to be best chuffed about that.
So Sylvain Barrier presently leads the championship by 11 points from Savadori in second, and he's 14 points ahead of Eddie Lamara. So let's check out the order as they cross the line. Starring leads it, Baroni second, Guanoni third, Reiterberger is now fourth, ahead of Savadori fifth, Barrier sixth, Lamara in seventh. So the top three in the championship locked together.
But that little incident with Giannone just cost Barrier, like, what, 3 places there and quite a bit of time. He ain't going to be chuffed with that, I tell you. The young Frenchman might be getting a visit back in the paddock, I think. He would if it were me. Man, he's a chunky lad, is Giannone. You'd have to watch out, wouldn't you?
Markus Reiterberger there, all in white. The German running in 4th place. But the gap has opened up in front of Guanoni there. There is Savadori chasing Sylvain Barrier.
This is it, gets up the inside, hits the ripples, look, can't get it stopped. Actually, Barry just about saw him coming and kind of, watch, he leans, you can see him lean across, watch, just there, look, it did see him just at the last minute.
Oof. So, in fact, it was good that neither of them went down, really, in the end. Oh, what's...
Well, I don't know, that's Giannone's team.
I know.
It's not Barry's team, and even he thinks they're a little bit mad.
Perhaps that's a message to his rider. Fastest lap, Brian Starring, 2 minutes 01.826, average speed of 157.9 kilometres per hour. And these bikes comfortably topping 300 kilometres per hour down this straight with the strong tailwind.
Yeah, I'll just explain that. I know I've banged on about it quite a bit, but these things are stock 1000cc bikes, in fact, in the case of the 4s, and 1200cc in the case of the Ducati Panigale. The best part of 200 break.
Oh! And he's brought the other one down. 2 of them clip each other, and Barrier's gone down, and this time it was his fault. He leapfrogs impressively over his stricken machine, and I think he's taken down one of the Panigales.
It was definitely Ducati.
So he's definitely dealt with one of his rivals. Oh, it was Savadori. Just touched him enough to knock him off. So Lorenzo Savadori, so the first and second place men in the championship have collided into the hairpin and both gone down. Wow, now what the heck's going to happen? The championship has suddenly been turned on its head. Eddie Lamara looks the likely man. Brian Starring leads the way.
Do you know what? That hairpin at the bottom of a long, fast straight. Bit Ripley going in, and it kind of just sucks you in. There's plenty runoff there as well, so even that sucks you in to break that little bit later. And yeah, it's one of them hairpins where lots of things happen.
It's opened the race up. Kev Coghlan, though. Coghlan, number 24, closing the gap on Eddie Lamara. There are the two Panigales still running up front, and the Scotsman from Perth, who managed to finish, eventually he finished in 12th place in the sprint Supersport race for the Appleyard Macadam racing team last weekend at Knockhill, ahead of his teammates Dean Brown and Nicky Coates, but he had to pull out of the top 10 with a technical issue in the second race last Sunday. Well, at the moment, things going strongly for him. He's running in 6th place. These are the leaders, with Starring gradually being hunted down by the number 14 machine of Lorenzo Baroni, the 22-year-old from Ravenna, riding for the BMW Motorrad Italia Gold Bet team.
Yeah, we talked about these bikes. These things, they are just about 200 brake horsepower, so they're not actually that far. They're probably less than 10% down in power of the actual full-blown superbikes.
Here comes Coghlan. Look, he's just pulled out from the slipstream of his rival Panigale. Has he got it on the brakes, the Scotsman? Yes. Oh no, he's running a bit deep. Did he pull it back?
What is it?
Well, no, he's just gone out of sight in the background there. Out in the country as they come storming across the line. The leaders cross the line. Starring still holds the advantage. And I think Kev Coghlan did manage to hang on. He did. He was leading Baroni as they went across the line. I beg your pardon, make that Lamara. I get my Italians all mixed up, but you'll be used to that now back home. We're on about we're on 1/3 race distance, and Brian Starring still seeking what he thought was going to come to him much quicker in his European career, a race win in European Superstock Thou. Leads the way at the moment, but he's being hounded by Lorenzo Baroni there on the bright blue, yellow and white Gold Bet BMW. Behind, they've got a good ride for Jeremy Guanoni in 3rd place, 4th place for Marcus Reiterberger, 5th place being disputed by Kevin Coghlan, and the man who could just about, if he scored enough points, well, he'll certainly haul himself closer to the championship leader Eddie Lamara, but he needs to just push on a bit further than 6th place.
Yeah, he does.
6th place would give him 10 points, would move him a point behind Savadori and about 4 points behind Sylvain Barrier. Having said that, Savadori's remounted. Savadori is running in 17th place on the 1199 Panigale. He's right behind Randy Pagot's Kawasaki, so he's in with a chance of scoring some points, even though he was fetched down by a wayward Barrier.
He got away with the actual touch on Barrier. He just kind of fell off just slightly afterwards, I think, trying to get it back online, I think.
Yeah, I think surely the nudge of his back wheel had something to do with...
Oh, yeah, definitely. It was, instrumental in the incident, I think.
Interestingly, in the background, Coughlan's bike, James, has got away from that. There wasn't any chance there of Eddie Lamara slipstreaming him and outbreaking him at the end of the main straight.
There wasn't.
This beautiful circuit, it rises and falls to the tune of 50 metres, which is about over 165 feet of kind of vertical movement, which is a heck of a lot. There's some blind brow, steep climbs and descents.
Yeah, and there's lots of it where you're in 2nd or 3rd gear and kind of not on full throttle, but not on close throttle either. You're just kind of middling somewhere. You know, they're always difficult circuits to get dead right when one corner leads onto another, leads onto another, leads onto another. You've got lots of that round here.
They're just dropping here into turn 5 and then swing through turn 6, fast right-hander, and then they drop into the tighter turn 7, and then they begin a downhill drop here, and this is the bit that Herman Tilke, the circuit designer, tried to make something like the famous corkscrew at Laguna Seca, dropping downhill to the right, to the left. and then having to curve off down, still steeply downhill, and then almost immediately starting a climb, which leads to the very fast blind crest at the top of the hill. And this in turn drops them over the top, and a little like the entrance to the last turn at Valencia, dropping over the top there into the right angle left-hander at the bottom of the hill, turn 12.
Yeah, difficult part there is you've got to balance how much you can lean over by how much you can put the front brake on. You know, it's a real sort of balance act.
Упал. А так, по сути, вот хватает настроек для того, чтобы заднее колесо сохранилось.
Endurance race, and I went very, very quick and crashed a bit. Which you're better off going really steadily and constant kind of lap times and finishing.
And that's what Marias would be able to do.
Yeah, I did end up pushing the bike back in several pieces twice in the race.
Well, in which case I could understand his head dropping a little bit.
I went quick in between, though. To me, that was quite important at the time.
You'd be better as an endurance racer now. Oh, now look at this. Things are warming up. The Panigales are catching Reiterberger. Kev Coughlin having a great ride on that red and white Ducati Panigale, the one in the middle of those three, number 24. What a terrific ride. Kev, who turned 24 last Saturday at Knockhill, when he was competing in Super Sport, of course, for the Macadam Appleyard team. Here he is now catching Markus Reiterberger, who's the German, one of the new German hopes, of course.
He's got him. Absolutely right with him now. And if we're talking about the Panigale, they're the most different bike that's come on the scene, road bike at least, for years. Quite innovative. The thing, it doesn't have a traditional frame like every other bike on the grid has. The engine is straight. In fact, the engine is the main middle part of the frame, and the airbox bolts on the front of that, and then the steering head bolts on the front of that, and the subframe bolts on the back of the engine. So it's a real, you can't actually have a frame with wheels on if you take the engine out. It just all falls in pieces. So it's a real kind of innovative design.
So the German on the white BMW, the Team Alpha BMW. Here's Coughlin nipping inside the 18-year-old.
He's got it stopped.
And he's got it stopped.
A bit of a stop, kind of past that, really, a bit of a block past that. He got it stopped and really slowed it down mid-corner.
Reiterberger tries to respond. No, he shuts the door on him. Well done. A brilliant move by Kev Coughlin, who's done a lot of racing in Spain, of course. Learned the craft there, but look how fast Reiterberger came round.
I really wanted to see how.
Oh, and Eddie Lamara tries to go up the inside as well, and Coughlin's lost 2 places down the start and finish straight.
Yep. Oh, I was intrigued just to see just how quick the Ducati Panigales were against the BM. Obviously, the BMWs across the frame 4, with reputedly about 202, 203 brake horsepower in this super stock trim. The Panigales are both obviously V-twins, although a lot shorter stroke and higher revving than any big V-twin Ducati before them.
So Reiterberger showing a lot of spirit. He just turned 18 on March the 9th. She has the same birthday as I do, only several centuries younger. People first noticed him when he finished 11th, you know, in the Red Bull MotoGP Rookies Cup in 2008, Markus Reiterberger, and he stepped very early in his career onto a big bike, and he's showing plenty of spirit here.
That just seems to have woke him up, that.
It does.
Because it caught him really, really quickly.
And now suddenly he's on the case. He's riding on for the Team Alpha BMW. Alpha, of course, Alpha Technic, who had great success in World Supersport with your old rivals
Toykert and Kellner,
back in the day.
Yeah, that's
now Kev Coughlin's got to do this all over again. Eddie Lamara's working up. Lamara, number 47, moves through and squeezes inside the BMW, and that was a pretty hot spot to do it. That means that Eddie Lamara moves through into 4th place. Now that begins to give him the sort of points that would really challenge Barrier's championship lead.
Watch this, though. Watch this.
The BMW, tailwind.
You'd have to think so. There it goes.
Coughlin not quite close enough this time to take advantage of Lamara.
Oh, no, he's not. Slots back in.
Very fine Scottish helmet that Kev's got on.
Yeah, the Scots always kind of proud to be showing that they're from Scotland. Always have crosses St Andrew knee sliders and helmets and all sorts of stuff.
Now then, onto the straight. Can number 47 Lamara stay anywhere near number 21 Reiterberger? He can. Enough to nudge through once again into turn 1. And then swing right onto turn 2. Now the next turn was actually named, the first turn to be named there. The Carlos Checa curve was named underneath the very nose and the tendons of the illustrious reigning Superbike champion on Friday.
I wonder why they chose that corner in particular to name after Checo, and why not any other round the track?
Because he particularly loves it. He thinks it's a fabulous full-bore uphill left-hander, right-hander, sorry, that he really enjoys. So that was part of the reason.
Kev Coughlin. Neat.
That was, he found the hole there and just slipped through. Did Reiterberg get great advantage on the exit? No, Coughlin holds on to the advantage as they drop downhill. He doesn't want Lamara to get away. Well, the Panigales are performing pretty respectably.
Well. I tell you what, they must be a good thing. I've not ridden one yet. I've ridden plenty of BMs. But, do you know, they are nimble, and you can see that their advantage is in the corners, mid-corner speed, getting them stopped, getting them turned, you know, because they have definitely got, well, from what we've seen just now, a definite... Oh, Coughlin's off the track.
Run on.
Oh.
And he's gone far enough to hit the gravel. That's going to test his recovery. He glances across to his left to see where the opposition is, and they'd pulled so far away from
he's gone now.
McFadden.
Yeah, they have, but he's lost that.
He's secure in sixth place.
Yeah, he's lost that battle for fourth for sure.
I realise that's not consolation, but so there is number 14, Baroni in second. Guanoni just beginning to close him up. Further back, Eddie Lamara will now. If he finishes fourth, Lamara will start. He's gone.
He's gone completely. We've missed all this. He's pulled a massive.
His best lap was 2 minutes 1.446. His last lap 2 minutes 1.835. And also Guanoni, last lap for Baroni 2 minutes 3.5. Baroni's pulling him in 2 minutes 3.1.
Yeah, but
so it could yet be a Kawasaki 1-2.
The strange thing is, Steering is still lapping. He's lapping 2 seconds quicker than the men in second and third. That's a lot.
I wonder if that's a tyre thing then.
Well,
you wouldn't have thought so over such a short race, would you?
Well, Steering's still lapping within about, what, 2 or 3 tenths of his quickest lap. The other two are like 2 seconds outside their quickest lap.
And that was a new lap record, incidentally, set by that 2 minutes 1.446. Brian Starring has broken the lap record set last year by Nicolo Canepa on his Ducati in 2 minutes 1.56. So Brian Starring looks like, oh dear me, don't overdo it, son. He's just
You've got
pressing
a lead
on.
like that.
Well, this is great news for Brian Starring. This could really kickstart his European career after having a not entirely smooth running 18 months over here so far, certainly on the European scene. 25 years old now, turned 25 years old on the 1st of June. He comes from Perth, but that's the other Perth, of course, the one in Australia.
Yeah.
So Brian Starring leads the way. He's got just over 2 laps left. And he's got a handy lead over what I think is developing into a battle between Baroni and Guanoni. And then Eddie Lamara, if he finishes in 4th place, the Panigale will actually... no, hang on. Savadori's scoring points. Savadori is now into 13th place. That's worth a very precious 3 points, which will edge him closer to Barrier. And, this is going to be a really tight contest by the time we tally it up at the end of this race. Two laps to go for Brian Starring on the Petruccini Kawasaki. The former Australian Superbike champion looks as if he's headed for his first victory in the European Superstock Championship. This is the battle developing between Baroni and Guanoni. This is Italian versus Frenchman, BMW versus Kawasaki. Can Guanoni, the former Superstock 600 European champion, make it a Kawasaki 1-2?
I reckon my maths tells me that Barrier is still going to lead it, even though he's not finished, but only by 1 point from Lamara, and Savadori will drop back to third, I reckon.
All right.
We'll see.
Having said that, Savadori is about to cross the line. Ferrer, Jezek have gone across. Jezek's gone across the line in 13th place, looking to see how far back Savadori is going to be as he bursts through. There is the leader. This is the battle beginning to heat up now for 2nd place. And Guanoni really on the pace is suddenly beginning to find some inspiration on 1,000. And Savadori is in fact going to end up in 13th place because he's 10 seconds. Nearly 10 seconds back.
Behind 12th, yeah.
So that's going to be 3 points then for Savadori after that unfortunate collision at the hairpin. This is the battle now for 2nd place, and Jeremy Guanoni looks as if he wants to put a smile on Maria's face here. The way that he's riding, he tucks underneath the BMW. Simple as that.
Yeah, lovely.
Wow. Well, I did.
A little bit of chatter from the front, but it didn't bother him.
So perhaps the 19-year-old Frenchman from Toulouse is suddenly... What happens when suddenly someone seems to get to grips with a motorcycle? Because
You can just click and start enjoying riding it and start to get a setup that you're happy with, and that sort of breeds a bit of success, and it's like an upward spiral instead of a downward spiral when you start crashing and you don't know why.
I mean, he rode for Pedicini last year, 17th in the Superstock 1000 Championship. Wasn't the sort of debut season he'd be looking for, but...
He's only young though, isn't he? You see,
19,
still,
yeah. So there he goes now into second place. Eddie Lamara still running in fourth place in the background there, ahead of Marcus Reiterberger in fifth on the Alfa BMW. And at the moment, Brian Starring clearly leading the way by 7 seconds, heading for his first victory. The final lap then, and Lorenzo Baroni trying to respond on the Goldbet BMW. The green Kawasaki leading the way though. Kawasaki's currently running 1-2 for the MRS team in second place, Team Pedicini leading it. Kev Coghlan still running comfortably in sixth place, about 3 seconds clear of Marco Busolotti, with McFadden, the South African, running 8th. Christopher Bergman, the Swede, running in 9th place, and Fabio Massai's Honda, the first Honda, running in 10th place. Beautiful circuit, this. And the riders do tend to, Marco Melandri especially, who was first and second here for Yamaha last year and fastest in every session except the one that really mattered across the weekend. He likes the place immensely.
Yeah, he does. It's kind of a Marmite type thing, you know, you either love it or you hate it, and there's not much in between, you know, and that tends to be the people who go well here tend to really love it, because there is a lot to get stuck into, lots of corners, lots of elevation changes, off camber, on camber. But if you don't like it, then it tends to kind of magnify that, you know, the time difference you have behind.
18 turns and the longest straight on the calendar. It's certainly quite an impressive facility. But on the final lap here, we're looking at what is now a fading battle for second place. Well ahead of them, the race is going to be won by Brian Starring, and the Australian finally nailing that long-awaited first victory in this championship series. You always felt like it was going to come at some point. Turned 25 on June the 1st, Brian Starring, and he's ahead of this as the battle for second place. Here we go, Brian Starring winging through the final turn. The former king of Wanneroo, the HM Plant Superstock deputy for Steve Plater a couple of years ago at Snetterton, crosses the line to take victory for Pedicini Kawasaki. Couldn't happen to a nicer bunch of people, although Pedicini Senior's a bit scary at times. Jeremy Guanoni finishes second for the MRS Kawasaki team, his best result on 1,000. And notice Lorenzo Baroni gesticulating furiously as Pitt, pointing at the front of his BMW as he crossed the line. Something had gone wrong with that.
I think.
I reckon it must have been. Baroni then third, Eddie Lamara in fourth place. He is now right back in the championship chase. Reiterberger finishes fifth. Kev Coghlan an excellent sixth, ahead of Busolotti, McFadden, Christopher Bergman, Massai, and Lorenzo Savadori recovers to finish in 13th place on bike number 32, which means that the 19-year-old from Cesena on the Barney racing team, Panigale, has rescued enough points to stay in the championship chase, closes the gap in fact on Sylvain Barrier to 8 points. And Brian Starring's found an Australian flag from somewhere. Gets congratulated by number 15, Fabio Massai, on the AAEAB 10 Carter Junior Team Honda. And congratulations all round. There's old man Pedicini. His son, of course, used to be a steady performer in the World Superbike Championship.
Mrs. Staring, I'm presuming there. Is it? That'd be his mum, will it?
Yes, I think so. She's been waiting for that for a while. So has Brian, of course. I mean, you know, he was the Australian Superbike champion on a Yamaha in 2009, on a Honda in 2010. And then heading over relatively late in his life, of course. So it's funny with the Australians, they either come over when they're like 14, like Stoner did, or Christopher Moulin at 16, or they come over like
quite late.
Carl Muggeridge and Brian Starring, mid-20s. But there again, these guys started racing a bit later in their lives as well, road racing, I mean. Brian Starring wins for the first time in the European Superstock 1000 Championship, riding Pedicini Kawasaki. Jeremy Guanoni in second for the MRS Kawasaki team. Lorenzo Baroni's Goldbet BMW in third place. I always forget how quickly this is going to disappear. Further down, Lorenzo Savadori's Panigale Ducati finishes in 13th place, which gets him 3 fairly precious points because it keeps him well in touch in the championship, because although he was knocked off by Sylvain Barrier, Barrier was never able to remount. And last place went to Pedrosa, a different Pedrosa from the one who rides in MotoGP, of course. Congratulations from number 155, Tiago Dias of Portugal, to the race winner. So a very entertaining first race of the day here at Motorland Aragon, where we're bringing you everything live throughout the day, and including a look also at the Superstock 600cc race that took place yesterday evening. But for this man, Brian Starring, his work is done for the day. Early in that, it must be a nice feeling. You can sit back and watch, watch the rest without any feeling of nervousness at what's to come.
Lamara
on his Panigale,
yeah.
He finishes in 4th place. And that would give him 13 points.
Yep. Which would give him 74, which would put him one point behind the non-scoring Barrier.
Yep.
Salvadori would move up to 67, I think, and slip to 3rd.
Yep, so Lamara's done enough to move into 2nd place in the championship, but the top 3 are still knotted closely together.
Was I right?
And yes, you were right. And see the number 27 passing by. How right was I? That's Adrian Prota. He's riding with his old man's old helmet.
Yep.
And also with his old man's number 27.
And about the same position his old man would have come in if he'd have been riding.
In the race, correct, in 20th place. Brian Starring gets the hugs from Kawasaki team. And Lorenzo Baroni shaking his head on he really is unhappy, Baroni, on that gold BMW. He's finished 3rd, but there was a problem.
There is nothing more. Looking at the clutch, I wonder if he might have lost his clutch. There's nothing more frustrating than, you know, somebody catching you late in a race, passing you, and you being able, because of machinery, be able to do nothing about it. It really is frustrating, is that?
Jeremy Guanoni then, he got that, he grabbed that 3rd place. Pedicini, there he is, with the spectacles. He always raced with glasses, and he was always a solidly built chap.
Even more now.
And Pedicini, well, he'd be pleased with that, because Starring, as I say, has been riding for him for a season and a half now. This is the halfway stage in this championship. That's 5 races completed. We've got 5 to come. Brno, Silverstone, Nürburgring, Portimao and Magny-Cours. So at exactly halfway through the season, Brian Starring finally clocks himself a race win. And at the moment, he's lingering in 11th place. Remember, he's had a couple of crashes that cost him dearly in the points. So that takes him to 45 points in the championship, which will move him a fair distance up the table, almost as just outside the top 6.
Yeah, I think he'll go to sort of 7th or 6th, yeah.
And there is Dad Pedicini.
Looking for a fight.
Brian Starring, congratulated by Baroni, and Brian's living in an apartment at the foot of the Alps, 15 minutes from the team headquarters. He says it's a fantastic place. 75 points for Barrier. He still leads the way, but only by 1 point from Eddie Lamara. Savadori salvages enough points to close the gap. He's on 67 in 3rd, Baroni in 4th. Brian Starring, I think, it improved to 7th place as they flashed off the screen there, and that's about as much as I can tell you. I didn't see where Kev Cogler had gone in the championship either. He was in 10th place before this race, just behind Guanoni, who got a hefty 20 points. BMW leading the way in the championship standings for manufacturers, ahead of Ducati. That's going to be an interesting one, because the Panigale's improving and getting closer, and of course the Kawasaki's are doing well. So a great start to the day then here. Don't forget, we've got Superbike World Championship action coming right throughout the day, as Jeremy Guanoni congratulates winner Brian Starring. We've got round 8 here, Motorland Aragon. Race 1 will be coming your way just before 11 o'clock UK time, followed by a look at the Superstock 600s, then Super Sport and Race 2 World Superbikes. Don't go away from 10:45 AM live on British Eurosport 2. We'll see you then.